L.M. It's so good to see everybody. Y'all happy to be here. Get people up here hugging in the book club, the book club. Hey, how you doing? Come on in, girl. Sit down. It's good to see everybody. And I'm so happy that you're here. Hey, Camille. Good to see you. That's what we do here. I am so excited to welcome y'all again. And I'm so grateful that y'all came because it was raining and I was like, I don't know. And it's a little cold too. So anyway, that's what we do. We come and gather in community and it's a very beautiful thing. And I'm so happy that everybody showed up tonight. So we're gonna go ahead and get started because we're a little late starting this time. But we're going to go ahead and get started, and I think you're going to really enjoy tonight. I am so happy that Dr. Parker and Dr. Bennett have come to be with us tonight. For me, Dr. Parker is the historian that I want to be. Dr. Parker brings meaning, he brings joy, he brings art, he brings soul, and he brings history in a way that people are connected and understand that history. And for me, that's what history should do. So I am so grateful and so happy that you're here. And where's Miss Addie? Miss Addie, maybe about a month and a half ago, she's sitting at the table with my Aunt Gwen. And if you're a woman of the movement, if you raise your hand, so we meet every month, and Miss Addie came with this little folded piece of paper. What was it, about a couple of months ago? And she said, Danita, we got a new Black Poet Laureate for the town of Chapel Hill. I want you to get her and bring her to the meeting. So, and Lord, the mayor's here. I'm sorry, my favorite mayor in the whole wide world. That's right. Thank you. And I'm happy you're here. I'm happy you're here, Mayor. So that's what she said. She said, I want to make sure that she is here. She was so proud, and we're all proud. So when we got together and we had an opportunity to meet each other, I said, can you come to my book club? She said, I'll be happy to. And so when I started reading some of her words and her literature, I became even more excited. So we're not just going to be here. We're not just going to be here. We're going to be here. And so I want to turn the mic over to Simona Golden, my partner in the book club for the last three things.
Hello, everybody. It's so good to see you. It's true. It was raining cats and dogs. And then, like North Carolina does, look at that. Yeah. Butterscotch sunshine and Carolina blue skies because we all, right, like had to come together and be with each other tonight. I'm so thrilled to see everybody here. And a little bit starting to get a little bit sad about this being the third and next week being the fourth, which is the last week. So tonight we really have to like fully be present and be here with each other. I am really lucky that I get to read the bios and introduce these two incredible humans. You all know that in the book club, like our real commitment is to living history. It's to voice. It's to really interrogating power and speaking back to systems of white supremacy and racism. And we could not have two more incredible people here to offer their wisdom, their beauty with language, their insight to us so that we can do something with it, right? Because that's what the thing that we all do is we hear and we learn from others, but we know that every single person in this room has just so much to teach. And so tonight, watch me put my reading glasses on. I used to be able to just like open something and read it, but I can't do that anymore. So Dr. Parker was born and raised just down the road in Hillsborough, North Carolina. He is currently Professor Emeritus and former Julius Chambers Endowed Professor of History at North Carolina Central, incredible school down the road, where he taught American, African American, and African history for 50 years. He is the author of some groundbreaking books that really shake the earth when you read them. Running for Freedom, Slave Runaways in North Carolina, 1775 to 1840, and Stealing a Little Freedom, Advertisements for Slave Runaways in North Carolina, 1791 to 1840. Dr. Parker served on the North Carolina Historical Commission, the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission, and the North Carolina Historical Highway Marker Commission, where he was chair, among other boards and state commissions. That might have just sounded like I just rattled off a bunch of stuff, and maybe I did. What we need to do is we need to make sure, like when we hear those things, we think about the fact that every single one of those pieces of service are fundamentally about our state. They're about truth to the state. They're about beauty and honesty to the state. And they're like all pieces of service for which we all benefit every day in it as we exist in this state and learn from it and try to make it better. He's a recipient of the Christopher Crittenden Award. Did I say that right, Crittenden? Yeah. Okay. Award for his career contributions to the historical profession in North Carolina. And in February 2020, Governor Roy Cooper awarded him the Certificate of Appreciation for his exemplary service and invaluable contributions to North Carolina's community and education culture. These are incredible words about an incredible historian and human who is here to teach us. And even more, he's here with us. And that's great. And he is with Dr. Amanda Bennett, who is a poet, right? And Dr. Bennett, you should know that in our investigations, there is no dividing line between poetry, spoken word, photography, creativity, and art, and scholarship. Those all go really, really beautifully together. So she is a poet, a scholar, and a public humanities practitioner. She's based in Carrboro, which is why she's the Poet Laureate of Carrboro and not Chapel Hill. Where she holds the Poet Laureate. She also has a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of North Carolina, where her work bridges Black feminist thought, community storytelling, and literary arts facilitation. Her poetry and public programming are grounded in memory, witness, place, and the everyday textures of Black life. She is the author of the chapbook, Working the Roots, and is committed to creating spaces where writing becomes a practice of reflection, relation, and collective possibility. And I know that there are many writers here who strive towards those things. So thank you both for being here. I'm getting out of the way, but I'm so excited about tonight.
Thank you so much for that incredibly generous introduction. And I'm so honored to be here with Dr. Parker and the other incredible folks telling the stories of people who are working class. And to kind of set the tone for us, I wanted to share a poem I wrote called The Shape of a Promise. And I dedicated that poem to my pawpaw, Harvey Johnson, who was born a sharecropper in rural Alabama in the 1940s before moving to Atlanta for a better life for us and our family. And he did not have the privilege of having access to the education that I did to, earn a doctorate, but he's one of the most brilliant people I know. And this poem is my attempt to remind us of his humanity, remind us of his identity beyond these labels of sharecropper or title, in the hope of clarification and truth. So, The Shape of a Promise. Do you know what it takes to stay the course in the absence of sight, of light, of the promise of a happy ending. The shape of a promise is held by the hands of many, hands that shake, split open upon fear's sharp edges, yet refuse to let go. It takes us all to bear the weight that may have crushed one heart alone. It's tenderness that lifts the fallen sky, that lays new roads where mouths of hate swallowed whole. I think of my pawpaw and his clay-kissed pickup, flying me down Georgia dirt roads, red dust rusting the air, saying, "We come from people who have always made a way out of no way." Thank you. Thank you.
So tonight we just have a little snippet. I always call it bringing the ancestors in the room. If you notice, when we do a historical presentation, oftentimes we like for people who created the history or made the history to speak for themselves. So Dr. Parker has a fascinating story to share about the 1969 food worker strike, and his mother is was one of the organizers, one of the lead organizers. So we're preparing a video for you so that we can bring that ancestor into the room. And after that, y'all gonna get a real special little treat, and then we'll continue with the slides.
Well, really, in the beginning, the employees just had something like a few, minor problems, which could have been solved by Mr. Pilgrim and his co-workers if they would only have, took time out to listen to us. We were working every Sunday. We never had a Sunday off. We wanted to talk about that, if it could be switched around, so like some of the employees could work, so many work one Sunday and, Sunday like that. And then we wanted a raise out. We weren't getting what we thought we were getting. We were getting something about like, I believe it was $1.25, I believe, something like that. Some was getting 60 cents an hour. And it's so many things that could have been improved, but they didn't want to take time out to talk to us, and that's really what brought all of this on. Because they were just, minor problems that could have been solved, by taking time out. And I don't guess they were concerned enough, to really do this. So when we stage the walkout, that's when we got to talk to them. They decided they would sit down and talk with us. But it didn't seem to, solve much. We all went to work that particular day, and we were determined we weren't going to work until Mr. Pilgrim and his co-workers sat and talked with, I think, Mr. Branch was there, too.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Mama. I want y'all to get your voices together because this is participation time. We're going to take it back to 1949 when this song was written. If I had a hammer, all right, I'd hammer in the morning, I'd hammer in the evening, all over this land. I'd hammer out danger, I'd hammer out a warning, I'd hammer out love between my brothers and my sisters, all over this land. If I had a bell, I'd ring it in the morning, I'd ring it in the evening, all over this land. I'd ring out danger, I'd ring out a warning. I'd ring out love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. If I had a song, I'd sing it in the morning. I'd sing it in the evening, all over this land. I'd sing out danger. I'd sing out a warning. I'd sing out love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. Now, y'all come in like this. I'm going to say, yeah. Y'all going to say, yeah. I say, yeah. Yeah, yeah. I say, yeah. Y'all say, yeah, yeah. I say, yeah. You say, yeah, yeah. All over this land. So I've got a hammer, and I've got a bell, and I've got a song to sing all over this land. It's the hammer of justice. It's the bell of freedom. It's the song about love between my brothers and my sisters all over this land. Yeah. Seven years ago, I was 16 years of age, but I think kids in 1967, 68, 69 were more politically astute than kids are today. We're having a 16-year-old in the house, 15. I don't mean any harm whatsoever, but we were at two different levels. And much of it had to do with the fact that we lived in a sure enough in-your-face racist society in 1968, 69. So maybe those things are not as apparent today as they were 57 years ago. But nevertheless, we were involved in protest activity at 14 and 15 years of age. You know, when I think back on that, we weren't afraid. I remember in our second strike that we're going to take a look at, it was bloody. December 4th, 1969. They were swinging clubs, that is the Chapel Hill Police Department and the UNC, excuse me, we call them pigs at that time. They were swinging those bats. And I remember seeing one young lady get hit in the head and her skin just popped open like that. And of course, we had to take her to the hospital. But before she went to the hospital, I remember retreating because they had guns in our faces, and it was an ugly situation in front of Lenore Hall. But we weren't afraid, it seemed, at 15 and 16 years of age. And I remember going to my car, and I put my hands in my pocket to get my keys, and this Chapel Hill police officer put a gun to my head and cocked it. And my thing was, go ahead. I wouldn't say that now, probably. But when you're 16 years of age, you say stuff like that. But they forced us off the campus. And so that year, 1969, with two strikes on the campus of UNC Chapel Hill, we were always told that we were living in the southern part of heaven when you were at UNC Chapel Hill. My philosophy was it was just the northern part of hell. And that's, in many ways, how we were treated. So let's take a look. To stay on task, I want to to do some slides to give you a pretty decent idea about what went on or what had been going on in 1966, 67, 68 that led up to the strike that opened on February 23rd, 1969. Okay, next. I call this a prelude to the strike because even before the strike actually took place in February, we were working with the Black student movement that had just been established back in 1967. And if you were in Chapel Hill as a Chapel Hill High School student or Lincoln High School student, you probably came into contact at some point with Preston Dobbins, Jack McLean, and a few others. And so these individuals were about the business of not only doing stuff for students, but they were about the business of helping not only cafeteria workers and custodians, but people in the greater Chapel Hill community, not only the greater Chapel Hill community, but they came to Hillsborough and they were also working with Central High School students. So it's important to look at what these individuals were doing. And on December 11th, 1968, the Black student movement presented a list of demands, 23 demands, not grievances, but demands. This is what y'all gonna do. And so those were presented to Chancellor Carlisle Citizen. It was a comprehensive list. And as we go through them, you'll see just how comprehensive it was and the fact that they were not only about the business of looking at campus life, but the broader community. UNC is guilty of perpetuating educational inequality. That was the BSM's fundamental critique. And as you can see, they were looking at three broad areas: educational inequality. UNC is guilty of denying equal educational opportunities to minority group members and has maintained and intends to perpetuate educational inequality through its selective admissions procedures. Number two, worker exploitation. The university has taken full advantage of the Black non-academic workers and has discriminated against Blacks in hiring and promotions, seeking to pay the least allowable wages. And you heard my mother say $1.25. Some folks were making $1.60, so they were on the upper echelon. Administrative dishonesty. Administrative officials have presented false information, inconsistent reports, and have completely misrepresented a supposedly non-discriminatory university policy. Past negotiations resulted only in token, symbolic acts which do not meet the educational needs of Black students. Next one. Just a summary of those demands. Admissions and financial aid. It was believed that by the Black students, not only at UNC, but at Duke and at most schools across the country, that the SAT was unfair, that Black students should be based on their admission should be based on high school performance and recommendations rather than SAT scores, which the BSM argued were biased in favor of white middle-class standards. Number two, curriculum and academic life. A Black studies department. I mean, if you were living in the United States in 1968, 69, and you were associated with a PWI, a predominantly white institution, one of the things that Black students in the community, Black community at large fought for was a Black studies department or African American studies, an African and African American studies program. The immediate establishment of a Department of Afro-American Studies, that did become a reality. And we have one here at UNC Chapel Hill, one at Duke University, and many other schools across the country. But all of them are definitely what? Under assault right now as a result of, you know what's going on.
I mean, what it is. Yes.
Representation and administration. Black students were fighting for a dean of Black students. Creation of a new administrative office, especially responsive to the needs of Black students, to be filled by a Black person. Did that happen?
Nope.
Eventually it did. Eventually it did. And number 4, the one that we're really concerned about, workers' rights and community, non-academic employees. The university was demanded to address intolerable working conditions for Black food service and custodial staff, including higher wages and better treatment. Community investment, that is going beyond the campus. Opening athletic facilities to local Black youth and establishing free dental and legal clinics for the local Black community. And we're talking about Chapel Hill and Carrboro. Housing and sanitation beyond the UNC campus. Using university influence to improve living conditions, such as plumbing and garbage pickup in nearby Black neighborhoods. You have to admire those students. You have to admire, their fortitude and their foresight for looking beyond their own individual needs in 1968, 69. And because I think it's so important, I added another slide here that actually carried it to another level. In terms of housing, we're talking about indoor plumbing for the Black community, Chapel Hill and Carrboro. Utility rate reduction. Utility rates should be reduced for Black community residents. And this had to do with the fact that you were not given what you should have been given on the front end in 1865 when slavery came to an end. What do we call that? Those reparations that should have been done. The 40 acres and mule was real.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if every head of household of those 4 million people who were freed in 1865, if every one of those individuals would have been given 40 acres and a mule, and we're talking about the land. The land. How many folks own 40 acres of land today? How many of y'all got 40 acres? Just raise your hand. I'll take 20. Give me 10. Can you imagine, though, if every head of household had been given 40 acres and a mule to cultivate that land, where we would be today? It would indeed be a different America if that had been done. But they went in the opposite direction. Low-rent housing. Low-rent housing should be established in cooperation with the Black community and controlled by the Black community itself. Health and sanitary conditions, that garbage pickup and street paving, and the general community development. The university should use its influence to promote activities of the Black community which will enhance the development of Black control of the Black community. This is some heavy stuff for 1969. Yes. Dr. Bennett.
Hi again. I wanted to share a poem called We Are the Forgotten that I wrote after working with incarcerated students at Orange Correctional Center out in Hillsborough, many of whom come from working class North Carolina families of color. And in this poem, I imagine myself as a we with them to show the process of community building across difference, and to see what happens when we actually uncover these differences and talk about them as opposed to suppressing them. So, we are the forgotten, but there is a world behind this wire. We wait for the chance for tears because they are unexpected, often unwanted. We carry stories in our tattoos. We let the body speak. The story we share could unweave the fabric of fairness. We hope you tangle in our threads. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we come to that first strike that actually took place on Sunday, February 23rd, 1969. It isn't slavery time anymore was a slogan that folks used, but for the most part, we said, it ain't slavery time no more. That was what we actually articulated. So on February 23rd, 1969, workers at Lenore Hall vacated their posts and occupied dining tables, refusing to work under exploitative conditions. The movement quickly grew to include 140 to 250 workers, primarily Black women demanding dignity and fair wages. And these are the young ladies who led that strike, not only the first one, but the second one as well. Mary Smith, Elizabeth Brooks, Sarah Parker, Amy Lyons, Burley Moore, and Clara Penix. This is February 23rd, 1969. We are sitting down with Mr. Prillerman and Mr. Branch there, telling them what we've been telling them for years, that you all need to do better. Everybody's sitting down except that little fellow in the back there. That's Freddie Parker. Maybe they didn't give me a seat today. I'm not sure exactly what. But that was on a Sunday afternoon. I remember it well, and as it turns out, probably 75 to 100 BSM and other members and other students were on the outside of Lenore Hall, waiting for the outcome. And the outcome was that we're going to strike. And this is part 2 of that article. Next. In terms of the grievances, wages below the federal minimum standard, compulsory unpaid time spent on campus. As my mother pointed out, you were on campus, but you were not getting paid. Inconvenient and exploitative split shifts. Anybody know what a split shift is?
Yes.
What's that split shift? Ms. Mason?
And it's when you work maybe a certain amount of hours and then you leave the premises and then you have to come back on the same day. Yeah.
Lack of basic benefits and job security. Social grievances. Overtly discriminatory attitudes from supervisors. I definitely attest to that. Nominal desegregation versus lived reality. Unfair labor practices targeting Black workers. Persistent institutionalized racial inequality. As I've indicated from the outset, that had not it been for the Black student movement here at UNC Chapel Hill, the strikes probably would not have occurred. I mean, without a doubt, they provided the background for the strikes. The Black student movement transformed the strike into a broader movement for racial equality, bridging the gap between campus labor and student activism. I think that is so important. And as you can see, that African American Studies Department is something they wanted, establishment or expansion of student aid, fair treatment, and they wanted a union. You all know what North Carolina is with regard to the union. Well, things really heightened within a week or so. We're talking February 23rd, and by March 4th or so, thousands of people, not only students, but folks from all over North Carolina. I'm talking primarily students from A&T, from NCCU, from UNCG, from Livingstone. These folks have come to give aid to these workers between after February 23rd. Violence at Lenore on March 4th. Protests escalated as students overturned tables and vandalized Lenore Hall, forcing its immediate closure. And the university said, we're not going to stand for that. And so they brought in the National Guard. You can see the National Guard standing there. I think I have another slide that's even bigger. So Governor Robert Scott ordered in the National Guard, riot police, Chapel Hill police, university police on March 5th. Next slide. And so they essentially escorting students. And what I can say is that there was tremendous support from students, Black and white. You all remember Charlie Scott, who was a basketball player at UNC. I guess he may have been the first Black.
Yeah.
Charlie Scott was on that picket line with us as early as 6 o'clock in the morning. Other basketball players and football players, definitely football players, were out there with us. Next. A couple of people who are color shot. A hard-won victory, if you want to call it a victory. Did get that raise, that wage increase from $1. Most people were making $1.60 an hour. You got this huge raise. Brother Light, remember the raise?
I don't know how much it was. Remember how?
Were you working at the time?
I think I had left at that point because the grant money that I was working on ran out. I was doing the canvassing for the employees with their grievances.
Right.
And it was grant money. And by that time, I think the grant had ran out, and I was trying to find another livelihood somewhere else. So I don't know exactly what the
Minimum wage 4 years later was $1.62 an hour. I worked for Burger King, so
How much an hour?
in 73 was 160.
Yeah. That's the federal minimum wage, right? Well, in this case, they went from $1.60 to $1.80. 20-cent raise. And they were not happy because it was circulating that it should go to at least $2.25 an hour. Because a lot of people were driving from Pittsboro, they were driving from Hillsborough, they were driving from Eflin, from Cedar Grove, from other places. The population was not basically, the working population was not basically here in Chapel Hill and Carrboro. And you're talking, I mean, even though people would say, well, gas was only
When baskets, that's what it means.
5 pounds of sugar was, but still, when you're not getting, what they did, like so many people do today, you always consider the part-time worker, where you don't actually get benefits. And that was the case at, with the food service workers. Improved conditions, new standards for working hours and shifts were established to address longstanding grievances. That did happen. The strike led to the creation of the UNC Non-Academic Employees Union, providing a collective voice. Next slide. But, you know, with all of that, yes.
How does the 4th of April, 1968 create this environment, or was it affecting this at all? I keep thinking about it.
I mean, there's long memory. You know, all of those folks who worked at UNC Chapel Hill were impacted by what happened on April 5th, 1968, and they knew that it was connected to labor, to employment.
Right, so it helped flush that open, because this started at the end of 1968. So Martin Luther King's death on the 4th of April, 1968 was a door opener in getting this going. So
you know, I can't say that folks were saying we're going to do what the folks did in Memphis, you know, 1968, but surely that was always in the back of people's minds. I mean, the fact that the labor strike in Memphis in 1968, I mean, the profound impact that it had on the labor movement, period. But for me to stand up here and say, you know, there's a direct connection between what they did in 1968 and what we did, you know, in February 1969, I can't make that direct link. But in May of 1969, so we're talking about those, what may have been accomplished with the first strike. But what did UNC do? They outsourced all of that to Saga. The Saga didn't play. They were mean, they were ugly, they were rough. They did not play. They said, in essence, to hell with all of this stuff that y'all think y'all achieved with your first strike. All of that was kicked to the side. So much so that within a few months, we're striking again because they didn't adhere to, for the most part, any of the stuff that was allegedly achieved, you know, in that first strike. So here we are again, 1969, fall 1969, the second strike. And there was this notion on the part of workers that we should not even attempt to do anything because you're not going to get the same kind of support that you got back in February and March. But we were surprised because even though you had hundreds and hundreds of students and others from across North Carolina to support the first strike, those numbers grew. And in November and December, you could come on the campus of UNC Chapel Hill and you would see students with shirts on from NCCU, from A&T, from Johnson C. Smith, from Howard University, all over are supporting this effort. You're bringing in names like Howard Fuller, who was the founder of Malcolm X Liberation University, changed his name to Owusu Sadaki. James Lee from Soul City. All these folks are here. You'll see their photograph in just a few minutes. But that second strike The hard-won gains of the spring were quickly threatened when UNC transferred food management to Saga. Saga had been founded back in 1948 in New York by a group of students. And you would think that they would be individuals who were more, people-oriented, more labor-oriented, but they were not. Workers perceived this move as a direct attempt to undermine their new union and roll back the concessions achieved in March. The conflict reached a breaking point in November 1969 when 6 employees were fired for promoting union organizing, triggering a second campus-wide strike that began on November 7, 1969. On December 4th, 1969, very, very aggressive action by the Chapel Hill police. They came in on buses on December 4th, 1969, along with the university police. That's the night that they were actually wielding those batons. And the BSM had prepared to some extent for what they believed would be violence. They had on gas masks. They had their sticks because they believed that violence would break out, and it did. I remember very, very clearly the BSM actually forming a line, and the UNC police and the university police forming a line. Somebody in our group exploded a firecracker, or you remember back in the day you could throw those things on the ground, they would pop. Somebody had a pocket full of those. Decided that they wanted to do that. And what did that do? It triggered something in the heads of those university police, and without very much hesitation, they did say, I want you to get your GD, MF, A's off this campus right now. The word they used was disperse, and disperse immediately. And after that, it wasn't a situation where they are saying, please leave, we want you to leave. They just began swinging. And that's the point at which a friend of mine and I retreated to my car, and the point at which the guy actually pulled the gun out. But it was an ugly, bloody scene. 3 people, let me just go ahead and read. The police wielding nightsticks and brandishing shotguns clashed with pickets and student sympathizers at Lenore on that Thursday night. 3 persons were taken to North Carolina Memorial Hospital for treatment of cuts and head injuries. Police said at least 9 persons were arrested on varying charges ranging from disruption to assault. Of the 3 hospitalized, 1 had a concussion and 2 had deep cuts. Of the 2 with deep cuts, 1 was a woman. And that was a young lady whose head was actually split open. And it must have been, the hospital was filled with probably 85 or 100 picketers, protesters, because we went to check on our people. And we were able to wait for them, and wait until they came out of ER. But that was an ugly evening. Next slide. And this is the coverage by the Durham Herald Sun on December 5th, 1969. And, Governor Scott says in this article that it was all about outside agitators. Our good, nice little workers wouldn't do anything like this. These are outside agitators. And that was the thing, that these people did not have the wherewithal to fight for themselves, that they depended on outsiders. But I want you to know that even though the Black student movement, undergirded these strikes, the folks who actually were in the vanguard from the outset were these women. Primarily these 7 women who are listed here. They're the ones who were talking that talk as early as 1965 about the changes that were needed. One more. So this was actually that night. You can see University Police and Chapel Hill Police, and you can see protesters there. So the following resolution occurred on December 9th. This is when terms were so-called reached. And the reason those terms were reached is because Howard Fuller had pulled together a whole lot of folk across the state of North Carolina and made the university personnel believe that thousands of people were going to converge upon UNC. And we don't know what's going to happen when you get 3,000 people on campus. We just don't know. And so it was that threat. It was that threat between December 4th and December 9th that actually led to the coming of terms. As you can see, statewide threat to actually come on this campus and sit down and talk. Statewide wage impact. The struggle resulted in a landmark statewide minimum wage increase to $1.80 per hour for all state employees. And you said it was the federal was what at that time?
62 and 73.
Okay. So the consequences. While wages rose, the university engaged in union busting tactics, leading to the firing of several key organizers and activists. After the, well, let's go to the next slide. Black Monday. I never heard of Black Monday at UNC Chapel Hill. Black Monday occurred on December 15th, 1969. I even ducked school that day to come. During that second food workers strike in December 1969, Black students once again held protests in support of the workers, standing on the picket lines and organizing boycotts. After Black students from across North Carolina began organizing to convene at the university for a massive demonstration of support for the food workers, the university began the work of helping to settle the strike. So on Monday, December 15th, approximately 750 Black students from across North Carolina met on campus for a Black Monday victory rally held in front of the South Building, the university's administration building. The powerful showing of support by North Carolina's Black students for the food workers demonstrated the importance of Chapel Hill in statewide movements for racial justice. Next slide. This is Black Monday. Black Monday.
Shaw U was first to arrive. Sir Shaw.
You can see Mrs. On the front here is Mrs. Mary Smith. Behind her, Mrs. Elizabeth Brooks, James Lee from Soul City, Mr. Epps, who was the union representative, and hundreds of students in front of the administration buildings.
Speak a little louder.
So I wanted to invoke the ancestor Audre Lorde, specifically through her poem, A Litany for Survival. just to give us an idea of the internal work that it takes to be able to pull off something as incredible as Black Monday. So, a litany for survival. For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone. For those of us who cannot indulge the passing dreams of choice, who love in doorways coming and going in the hours between dawns, looking inward and outward at once before and after, seeking a now that can breed futures like bread in our children's mouths, so their dreams will not reflect the death of ours. For those of us who were imprinted with fear like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk. For by this weapon, the illusion of some safety to be found. The heavy-footed hoped to silence us. For all of us, this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to survive. And when the sun rises, we are afraid it might not remain. When the sun sets, we are afraid it might not rise in the morning. When our stomachs are full, we are afraid of indigestion. When our stomachs are empty, we are afraid we may never eat again. When we are loved, we are afraid love will vanish. When we are alone, we are afraid love will never return. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard, nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak, remembering we were never meant to survive. Thank you.
I will say that it's important to say, to talk about the impact of college students. Because what was happening at UNC Chapel Hill, James Williams, I don't know when you were at Duke, but in 1969, February 1969.
Yeah.
Yeah. You all took over Allen Building.
That's right.
And we took over Manning Hall on the campus of UNC. You know, students and others actually decided that they needed a place to rest their head, to go in and eat barbecue and just to have a good time in addition to all the work we were doing. So actually took over Manning Hall for several weeks. I mean, eventually we were forced out, but not only was it happening on this campus, but it was happening across the nation. It was good to see, that energy among 19, 20, 21-year-olds. I wish we had that kind of energy on our college campuses today. The leaders in organizations, as we talked about, Mary Smith and Elizabeth Brooks, they were looked at as the leaders of the movement. We talk about the Black student movement. Governor Robert W. Scott, at the same time that, he's trying to settle this strike, he's also in negotiations with all of the 16 campuses, UNC campuses, to consolidate. So we are the University of North Carolina, those 16 schools that did not want to become a part of the UNC system. But that happened at about the same time. Chancellor Carlisle Citizen was, of course, the chancellor at that time. It was up and down for him, but finally, in both strikes, he had to actually sign off. It's ironic that I began working on my graduate degree in 1978 on this campus, and he was one of my professors. And we did have a conversation about what had happened just, 9 years, well, about 10 years earlier. I was in his class in 1980. And of course, the renowned civil rights lawyers represented the food workers during the March 1969 negotiations. Chambers, Stein, in Ferguson. I talked with Mr. Stein about 3 months ago, and he said, you know, we didn't get a dime for all the support that we gave y'all, because they actually came to Hillsborough at the same time and defended 9 of us who were arrested for protesting without a permit. So they were really busy, but it was primarily pro bono. Next. The American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFSCME, was the union that the workers joined. And they were a part of that until 1997. Members believed they needed more local control and a more aggressive approach to dealing with systemic racism. They are now members of UE Local 150. I think it's a 1 million maybe. So, a turning point in labor and civil rights. I think this is really important. The 1969 strikes at UNC Chapel Hill were not isolated incidents, but very powerful demonstrations of the ongoing struggle for racial and economic justice throughout this country. The protests marked a critical intersection where labor rights met civil rights, challenging the institutionalized inequalities of a major Southern so-called liberal institution. Beyond simple wage disputes, the strikes were a demand for dignity and recognition of Black workers' contributions to the university community. I think it's the last one. So the lasting legacy. Labor and civil rights intersection, the strikes prove that economic justice and racial equality are inseparable, setting a precedent for future intersectional activism. The power of collective action. I think we all know that. The alliance between Black workers and students demonstrated the effectiveness of unified, and this is really important, multi-generational protests. Young folk, middle-aged folk, old folks all need to work together. Institutional accountability. The events forced UNC and the state of North Carolina to confront systemic racism and overall discrimination, leading to long-term shifts in labor policy and campus culture. And in 2026, I wonder if they've learned anything. Because I am almost embarrassed to say that I'm a graduate of the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, because of where they are in terms of turning back the hands of time in such a negative way. Thank y'all.
Could we please give Dr. Parker another hand? Y'all saw how he brought the community in the room, and I'm so appreciative of his scholarship and his way of explaining things to make them relevant to today. And we know that North Carolina is dead last in the nation when it comes to labor rights. So that's something for consideration. Dr. Bennett is going to lead us through another, an exercise. And before we do that, I want to ask my homegirl, Vicky, would you please come on up? And Vicky is going to share tonight's poetry night. And Vicky is a generational poet. She's a poetess, and the James Gates Scholar, my girl Viana in the back of the room, is also a poet. So it's kind of a tradition with the book club. Every year, Vicky shares some of her wonderful poetry with us, and she agreed to share some this year tonight. So thank you so much, Vicky.
Let's go.
I have to say thank you to Dr. Parker for mentioning the 40 acres and a mule, because I speak to that. And I have to say that for this piece that Danita asked me to do for the memories and the ongoing struggle and the rights of our Black workers who are so often forgotten about as we talk about the working class in America. I think about my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my uncles, cousins who've helped build this town, this university, from Carolina Dining to the dental school to North Carolina Memorial Hospital, and even to myself starting my state service at 16 years old at North Carolina Memorial Hospital, dealing with people at that time. So for the love and the memories I give you, Black labor, Black love. Labor and love are action words. Labor nor love will succeed without intentional movement. People were emancipated without getting their 40 acres and a mule, still held captive to sharecrop the land on which they were enslaved. Oh, but Black love. The Black love that has held its people together for generations, from fields to floors to factories and stores. Class A work always completed, and love of family always succeeded. To be invisible to some is to be revered by others. Black folks have worked and loved together in a continuous motion since prior to those voyages across the ocean. We are a people who labor the way we love, intentional and hard. Those that believe otherwise, we give no regard. Labor and love are action words. Black labor, Black love.
Thank you so much for those incredible words. I feel deeply appreciate between love and labor for Black folks.
Yeah, that's, I don't want of his working.
Hello. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay. So you all have heard some incredible stories tonight from Dr. Parker. You've heard some poems from myself. You've heard Miss Vicky's wonderful, beautiful poetry. But I know we have a lot of storytellers and poets in the room tonight, and I wanted to guide us through a little exercise just to let us practice telling stories and making poetry together as a community. So it's going to be a little prompt, and then y'all can take a moment to think through it. And if you want to, you can stand up and share. So the prompt is, because this has been named now, ... Because I believe that poetry can spur us to action and spur us to be our highest selves. So now that we know this information, what are we going to do with it together? So just take a moment to think about that, and then when you're ready, we can share.
Say the prompt again.
Yes. Because this has been named now, ... Yeah.
This has been. I could say like, it reminds me of when I was Black. And so the issues are still relevant today. Thinking about. Like, what is it? We've heard that still going.
So it's kind of like, this is the name. Because this is the name. Or because this is the or about the people, of course, her name, I think such and such, that's the full.
You didn't understand, so I had to break it down.
Obviously, not another kind of kid.
So how are folks feeling? Is anyone ready to share? Or do we need more time? Someone want to share? Okay, go ahead. Okay.
Very often when I pay, I try to have bills of $5. Tell any cashier you can imagine that I'm showing you a picture of Abraham Lincoln. And I'm a retired language teacher, and I work a lot with language and sound bites. For example, when I'm talking with, let's say, modern Republicans, I often try to go with the flow and say things like, I heard that George Bush II had some pretty good ideas. What happened to the program of No Child Left Behind, et cetera, things on that line. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah. No, but how do we use humor as a way to engage with people with different beliefs? Thank you.
Respectful, but you can go both ways.
Of course. Thank you. Does anyone else want to share? Oh. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Because this has been named, I resolve to learn more of my and my people's history to ensure I'm intentional in the history I make.
Thank you so much. That's being an agent of change through how you learn and think. Thank you.
Then I know I'm going back to that table too.
Because this has been named now, we see the issues remain. So what do we do now?
Yeah. There's an imperative to act when you know better, you do better. Thank you for that.
I was so close that I had to go along.
Thank you.
Hey, going.
Oh, I can stand, yeah. Yeah, I wrote because mobilization has been named, I will look to see where it is lost in myself and where it is found, like in my generation on campus.
Thank you for that self-awareness. Thank you. And that's what Audrey was talking about. What are you going to do by looking in yourself to be able to make change around you? Thank you. Did anyone else want to share? I know we have a lot of storytellers and poets in this room.
It really seems like over here at this table, there's some really wanting to talk. I mean, I'll just stand here. Nope.
No.
Other tables. Because this has been named.
Because this has been named now, there's no denial. We must stand true to our words and deeds, even in the face of others' denial.
Thank you for that. Yeah. Truth is more important and more powerful than denial.
Oh, talk about generational.
Yeah.
Oh, that's biggest daughter.
I had a quick question before I shared. I had a piece written that I feel like pertains to tonight, but I didn't necessarily follow the prompt. Is that okay?
Please. Yes. Want to come up here or?
No.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's called No New News. Love me or hate me, there's no in between. The look in your eyes twinkles at the thought of my demise. But have you ever thought about what that means? No more human punching bags, no one to cover for your slack, no one whose worth you can assign to a price tag. You want me gone for now until you discover how the world works when someone doesn't have your back. When we were separate, I thrived, never equal, but alive. Now we're together and all we do is jive. Like water and oil, my blood makes you boil, yet it's me that will always shine in their eyes. Your people leave me confused while I leave them amused. In their eyes, I'm someone who will always lose. But in secret, I win, for I have love within. You're just hate, but I guess that is old news.
Thank you so much for that beautiful poem, and thank you for sharing this practice of cultivating an identity that is not dependent upon or purely reactive to oppressive forces. Thank you. If no one else had anything else, thank you all so much for participating. Thank you for sharing your stories.
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank the library staff, as usual, for showing up for this day. There's a lot of work that goes into these book clubs. Robin, thank you so much for all the work that you did. Molly, thank you so much. I also want to thank my Gemini sister twin, Wesley Hogan, for taking all of the photos that she's taken tonight. It would be wonderful if some of the prompts that y'all shared tonight, if y'all could get that to me and write it down, it would be nice to reflect that in a book. One of the things that we are doing next week is we are writing and writing history. So we've been in contact with folks over at Wilson Library. And one of the beautiful things about this gathering is that we have a different understanding of what Black labor in Chapel Hill has been. So for instance, my aunt Elise worked at the laundry, and she was a laundry worker. So after we had this conversation and we talked about writing history, as far as UNC goes in the historical annals, she's Elise Burnett, laundry worker. For us, she was the mother of the church. She was the leader of our family. She was in the stewardship board. She had the baddest car in Chapel Hill. So there are a lot of things that we can add to the historical narrative, and we'd like for you to come. Vicki, you talked about your family and how your family was related to labor. My grandmother worked in food service and was a housekeeper, so I had some things that I could add to that archive. So whether you show up physically or you write it down, please send us information about those janitors that we saw on that card. Send us information about people at the laundry, because they might have been names to people at the university, but they were everything to our community. So we'd like to add to the archive, and I would love to have some of the pieces that you had tonight and put them in the booklet next week. So I want to thank you so much for that. And I also want to ask, if you are an elected official, if you would please raise your hand or stand up, whatever you feel comfortable doing. I want to thank y'all for coming. It really does mean a lot to see who is in the room and who is not in the room. These historical sessions are really important to us. If we are servants for our community and we make policy for the community, I often wonder how these policies are informed. So when we gather together in a community and learn about the community, it's important for folks who are making decisions, future decisions about our community, to understand past. So when somebody comes from an elected position, it really means a lot. So thank you all very much for coming.
There, any university administrators or policy?
Well, I don't know, Missy Jillian, but we're going to ask. Since this is so important to the university, are there any university officials in the room?
Crickets.
They were certainly invited. So thank you very much. Let's see. Okay, so now y'all know what time it is.
See professors.
Danita.
UNC professors in.
Oh, Dr. Parker asked if there are any UNC professors in the room. Okay, I see Doug and Glenn. Thank y'all.
Great.
So, so for those of you who don't know, we pass around the bowl, and this is especially important for us tonight, Amanda. We pass around the bowl in honor of George Moses Horton, who was North Carolina's Poet Laureate. George Moses Horton was enslaved, and he was on UNC's campus. And his poetry was so good that he would write the poetry for some of the young white students and their girlfriends. He also ghost wrote for some of the local publications as well. But George Moses Horton was so popular, he had enough money to buy his freedom. His master did not allow him to buy his freedom, but later on, he was freed just because it was emancipation. So it's especially important that we acknowledge labor. You know, art is labor. People rehearse, we research, we do a lot. And for some reason, this is the only acceptable form of labor to take advantage of. So that's not what we do at the book club. Would you say that our art participation, our performances have added to this book club? Yeah. So I want to say that I'm grateful to you because you acknowledge that and you support our artists, and that's what we should always do, but we should also advocate for them, that they are paid justly and fairly for the labor that they put into their craft. So usually I forget my dollar to put into the bowl, but I got you today. I mean, I hope so. Huh?
MMC Day.
Daddy got it.
Y'all, I promise you, I had it in my. Oh. Okay. So I'm gonna start this bowl off, and we're gonna pass it around church style, okay? And we want to let everybody know how much we appreciate our artists. Is there any QR codes? I don't. Let's see if we can get a QR code in addition for those who are cash strapped like me.
They come around to all of you.
So when you finish. I'm talking about you, just one girl, it's all face.
Needed for the national. I'm gonna check this week. Send it off. Should be like next week. I have a certification in like construction and research and stuff like that, so I'll go ahead and get it like up to spreadsheet.
I like that.
It's just good for my credentials. It's showing that I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's.
Usually when we are passing around the bowl, we have a nice community song, get everybody in the spirit. But we tonight have a special guest. we are going to have Dr. Parker come again and sing A Change Is Gonna Come.
I was born by the river. Yes. In a little tent. Oh, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. 'Cause I don't know what's up there beyond the skies. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. I go to the movie and I go downtown, and somebody keep telling me don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. And then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me, please. But he winds up knocking me back down on on my knees. Whoa, there been times when I thought I couldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know, everybody, a change gonna come. Whoa, yes it will.
You who wanted an electric way to donate and fill this bowl even more, please, please, please.
And thank you so much for being the example of how we can build community together through history. Thank y'all for coming. Are y'all coming next week?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Next week. Thank you. Last week.
And for those of you who are able, hale and hearty folk, we sure could use your help cleaning up. So putting away chairs and cleaning up. And there's plenty of food if folks want to take some food as well.
We love